My name is Jeremy Kermit, and I am a cancer patient.
Jeremy, I really appreciate you coming on to TEDx Santa Barbara to talk about this. When did you find out you had this inoperable or unsolvable brain cancer?
I got diagnosed in September of 2019, so a couple of years ago,
And
and
and what did they?
it presented in sort of an interesting way. I was actually out to lunch with a buddy of mine, and I had a seizure, and I fell off the chair and started spasming, and he called the ambulance, and they took me into the hospital, and they put me in the CT machine and said, "Yeah, it looks like there's something in your head." And that sort of started a cascade of events that continued happening shortly thereafter. And I was immediately taken into the OR in the hospital, and I had a really amazing brain surgeon who went into my head and removed a large mass immediately, right away. They wasted no time, and he did a fantastic job. And it was a successful operation in the sense that they got a complete resection. They took out as much of it as they could without doing other damage, which is always the goal of that
Yeah.
sort of surgery.
At that time, you were feeling pretty bullish about the prognosis?
Well, at that time, they really didn't have much time to like digest it or for it to settle in. It was kind of presented to me in a pretty brash manner by the ER staff. They just said, "Oh yeah, this that we see something in there. You probably have brain cancer. Good luck."
Jeez.
So yeah, their rapport at that time was not so perfect, to me and my family. Just sort of like,
And you're young. How old are you, Jeremy?
I'm 38.
And I've known you for a few months now, and have had a chance to get to know you. Yet this relationship we have with someone who knows you're facing death imminent, yet you're very positive. You've got a great outlook on life, and I thought that helping us understand from two points of view. One, that's just terrible news for you. Obviously, that's terrible news, but you've resolved something there. I want to hear about that. The other part of that, though, is family members have been flying in to see you, and how they talk to you, because I think everybody's relationship to death is different. And I think you're living it right now, man. That
Absolutely.
you've probably learned some things that would help both the receiver of that news and then the one who's the loved one.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going through my own process of it, trying to wrap my head around it, right? Get some sort of sense of calm out of what's going on with it. It's a very chaotic situation, kind of really difficult to process and digest. But for me, my processes involve, just sort of a lot of what I call truths that I just sense they're true on their own merits by the nature of what they are. And that sort of thing has helped me through with my ability to process and cope with, this, rare and deadly diagnosis.
Give me an example of one of those truths.
Well, my mind works in a very scientific and analytical manner. Because of how I was raised and my experiences, there's things that just we can hold as truth based on observation. I'm a big fan of observing. And I think if you observe things in detail in life, you start to notice patterns, not just because our brains are wired to do that, although they are, but just observationally, you can sense that these things kind of exist in certain ways that repeat themselves, whether you look in nature or in other places in life. So some of my calm has come from recognizing that there are these truths that exist, and that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. We can sort of look to, people who've come before us that have shared and experienced these truths to just take them as face value, that they do exist and they are true. Like there are mathematical equations that you can use to describe certain shapes, either geometries or patterns or whatever. And that to me is a truth. And this is sort of no different in the sense that this has happened, over and over again in history, and it just is the way it is. And we can describe it because we've seen it. And that to me, I take some comfort in that, realizing that it is a natural thing that, is part of the cycle of life. And that to me allows me not to have to freak out and like white knuckle it and resist it and be scared. And that's also due to my other experiences in life, just both observationally watching the world and my experiences in sport. I have been a long time cyclist, and that for me has taught me mentally how to approach challenges. And the equation, the way I will equate that is, when you're on a long bike ride, your body is kind of screaming at you that this is not okay and to stop and stop. Just like freaking out, yelling at you. And that experience in my life has allowed me to form some mental preparedness on how to approach these challenging situations, to sort of know that, if you just keep pedaling, it might be painful in the moment, but eventually you'll get there. And that has been an indelible mark on my life, going through those long bike rides, 4, 5, 6+ hours, and having your body kind of wig out on you, and just realizing that your body is actually capable of a lot more than you and your brain want it to be capable of doing. That also comes from another one of my hobbies, which is free diving, which is breath hold diving in the ocean. And that is an interesting truth that we know as humans, the human body can exist without fresh oxygen for minutes. That just is a truth. Like your urge to breathe is not caused by low oxygen levels in your blood. It's actually caused by a buildup of CO2, which is a byproduct of, muscles doing their thing. And so knowing that has allowed me to go deep under the water for multiple minutes at a time, and realizing that you're going to be okay, even though your body's like yelling at you to stop doing that. You can come up, you're going to survive it. And it's just part of sensation. There's a lot of sensation that kind of tries to trick you, and your body is actually able to get through that. And if your mind is willing to push you there. So it's true both, in the water and on the bike. You can kind of harness that power of the mind. That's definitely another one of those truths that, is one of my little mantras that I've been using to get me through this.
Jeremy, are you surprised at how you've taken the news?
A little bit. I mean, I think there has been a little, maybe bit of denial, but that's because the first, year or even a little bit more that I was diagnosed, I was completely not sick at all. So I didn't feel like there was much tangible evidence. They're like, they tell me they can see this thing that's growing in my brain, but I don't really feel like it's affecting me from doing anything. And it took kind of a little while for the effects to start showing themselves. I did lose a little bit of my vision, and I've lost some of my motor control and function of my muscles, and the motor area of my brain has been partly affected. So because that was sort of a delayed onset, it was really easy to ignore because it was so not tangible in the beginning. So that made it a lot easier to just kind of say, oh yeah, this is fine, like whatever, I just go about my life and keep going.
Let's switch and think about because I mean, this is a model I will never forget in terms of if something happens to me or those with me, I'm going to have them watch this conversation, because being able to, it's not that we lack resources, we lack resourcefulness. You are very resourceful. Let's switch and the impact on your family has been, very dramatic.
Yes.
You're such a young person. The impending loss and how you're dealing with it. And we don't know, part of this is like, we don't know how to talk to someone who knows, hey, I'm not going to be here in a little while. And
Right.
we don't know what to say. We don't know how to say it. We're just all up in our head, and we end up not saying anything.
It is a bit of a mental hurdle.
So you see that, and I'm going to guess, because you're a scientist, which I love. You see that going on. What do you do to help them?
I mean, I guess just, show that, there is more power, deep inside of you that you can draw from than you may realize, even though you're getting signals that it's not okay to do that.
I like that. I like that. What would you say to the mom or dad or brother or sister? I mean, we happen to be, this is very, very rare what you have, yet we're in the middle of a pandemic, hopefully on the tail end of a pandemic, and people have had to deal with sudden loss. What might you say to the families?
You're stronger than you realize, and the reserves of your energy that are deep in there, you can draw from them, even though it's challenging and difficult, and to try to lean into that a little bit. There's a lot that you can gather, that you don't realize is available.
One of the things I'm in love with is stories, and the stories we tell. I recently lost my father, and the thing that made me most sad was that I didn't take the time to hear the stories. And I'm wondering, because I know your mom's there with you, your dad comes and visit, the family has been in and out. Are you making it a priority to spend time telling stories?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's an interesting thing that I've noticed, that it seems to be more comfortable to kind of go backwards a little bit, because it's a bit, more comforting than, trying to think about what proceeding forward looks like. So yeah, revisiting stories is a really good thing, I think. And it's interesting because I've been sort of making a list of people who I want to reconnect with. And it's an interesting way that your brain is wired. When you think about memories, like I can do this little thought experiment with you right now that I like to do with people sometimes at parties and whatever. And I'll ask you a question like, what did you eat for dinner 3 weeks ago on a Thursday? I can almost guarantee you that you will not be able to answer that, because your brain is not wired that way.
Yep.
Your brain is wired locationally, like geographically. So when I've been thinking about like people who I want to reconnect with, I start with a place either that I've lived or went to school, and I figure out who are the connections that I made there, because that is how brains are wired, are for spatial recognition. It's actually a technique that's used by like people who do memory competitions.
We call it the memory palace.
Right, exactly.
Right. It's a great way to remember things. And I want to, I will have great memories of you, because we've had great conversations and great stories over the last few months. What as we bring this talk to an end, what do you want to make sure people take away from this talk?
I'm sort of thinking about this topic in a few different ways to wrap my head around it. But I think the stance that I would like people to take away from it is, the word keeps kind of coming back to me, is embrace. And it's a difficult challenge to actually practice embracing this particular topic and what it means. And I've been practicing that in my own mind, preparing, getting ready for it. I think a lot of things don't prepare you for this. People tend to want to resist it and be scared of it and white knuckle and not, kind of drop in. But, wrapping your arms and giving it a big hug all the way around it, embracing the level of uncertainty and discomfort. That's an economic term, right? Like people don't like uncertainty because it means their money is unstable, and that doesn't mean that your future is stable. So I would challenge people to try to embrace discomfort as much as is reasonable. Things that are uncomfortable, we tend to want to shy away from, but kind of going there and actually taking it and running with it and looking at it, hard in the mirror. So embracing discomfort, and also one of the things that it's been hard for me is my cognitive bandwidth has been impacted. So thinking has been a real challenge, and so I wind up doing a lot of reductionist thinking because it's just easier on my bandwidth to do that. And I think that's another topic that I think is important for people to hear, that reductionist thinking strategies, I think, erode the foundations of like society and relationships. And I think foundations are another thing that I want people to take away from this. Is my observation now looking backwards, how important foundations are, whether it be relationship foundations, but I think about it as like the stump or the taproot or the tree trunk of whatever it is that's growing, whether it's your body. I've been really lucky to be able to have a good, strong body and an athlete, and work on my core and my foundation. And that really is where all of the strength comes from, is the thickness of that taproot of the trunk of the tree. And, really nurturing those foundations with, those people around you who are important, those connections, friends and family members.
Jeremy, thank you so much. I just deeply appreciate you helping us deal with this really tough subject, and we just sending you all the good thoughts that we can.
Thank you.